I am joined now by the boys, J.C. Polanco, assistant professor at the University of Mount St. Vincent, and political consultant OBrien Murray. So believe it or not, we're going to start talking about Andrew Cuomo because Friday was the deadline for him taking himself off the independent line that he had established. But he decided not to do that, so whether he campaigns or not remains to be seen, but he will be on the ballot come November. What effect is that going to have on the mayoral race in New York City?
I think Marcia, the biggest thing is that's an example that the ballot will take a while to set. You cannot actually call on a candidate. It's a law. I get all this we're talking about right now. But right now, what if this shifts 5 points either way? What if the counties switch? You have a major situation here where New York City has ranked choice voting, no final, election day was Tuesday, no final results. How can you make a decision on the ballot when you may not even have the results? What if this was a 2-point race? He still would have to make the decision. Whatever he decided, he decides.
No, you're missing the point. The point is that his name will be on the ballot.
Yes, it will be.
They decided not to take his name off the ballot. They had until Friday to do it. They're leaving him on the ballot. He will be on the ballot come November, no matter what happens.
He will be on the ballot, no matter what.
JC.
Yeah, he's on the ballot. It's going to be a problem for those that don't want to see Assemblyman Mamdani win in November. Having Andrew Cuomo on the ballot represents a big problem for Mayor Eric Adams and for Curtis Lewa. They're trying to join somehow, try to get enough voters out there that don't want to see Assemblyman Mamdani get elected. They think that they can create a coalition to defeat Assemblyman Mamdani, but with Andrew Cuomo on the ballot, it's going to become very difficult for that to happen.
But as Obi points out, the bottom line is this. You could be on the ballot, but that doesn't mean you have to campaign. So the question is, if he decides to campaign, how does that affect the election?
Marcia, my campaign world, and I had a case with Jack Martins in 2016 that went one step before the Supreme Court as a campaign guy. If I was Eric Adams, the minute that, if it happens, Andrew Cuomo suspends his campaign, I'd go to court, get him off the ballot, say it was not properly organized, where he had to decide.
Can he do that?
No.
No, anyone can go to court.
Obi.
Anybody can go to court.
Yeah,
Obi, it's too late.
This date shows the ineffectiveness of the organization.
The law,
who
can win? Andrew Cuomo?
I mean, you're a lawyer.
I am.
As Obi says, could anybody, either Mamdani or Eric Adams, go to court and have Andrew Cuomo taken off?
There is no legal basis for it. The law is clear. The only way that could have happened is he were to step down from that by Friday. It's over. He didn't do it. It's on. And the only way that, for example, there could be any sort of unification, let's say that in some alternative universe, Republican candidate Curtis Lewa, which he's not going to do it, says, I'm going to withdraw so that Eric Adams could become the candidate for mayor on the Republican line. That would be an impossibility unless Curtis Lewa were to die, God forbid, because he's a great guy, or become a judge, or were to be convicted of a felony or move out of state. And he has made it very clear he's not leaving. This situation here, for those analysts out there, including you, Obi, understand, it makes it almost impossible for an Assemblyman Mamdani to lose in November, considering that the Democratic Party is unifying behind him.
JC, I have taken a case to the Supreme Court, not as a lawyer, but as a political person running a think tank in D.C. I'm telling you, if I worked for Eric Adams, I would be talking to lawyers today to say, if Cuomo suspends his campaign, this is not right. It's only the second time we've had the ranked choice voting citywide. There's a flaw in the system. The courts can decide.
That's not an argument, and it's not going to win. Look, your viewers want to know, can Andrew Cuomo win? Can Assemblyman Mamdani lose? If you have the opposition split the way it is right now, it's going to be impossible, especially when we see Assemblyman Mamdani unifying the Democratic Party. He has the support of Jerry Nadler. He has the support of Mark Levine. We saw the Brooklyn chair come out and say we have to unify. It is going to be impossible to launch an opposition with a divided opposition.
Let me ask you a question, though. So right after the election, there was a new poll that was done by the Honan Strategy Group, which found that if Andrew Cuomo stays in the race, it would be a dead heat with Zohran Mamdani. So do you think that's just wishful thinking on the part of some people, or is it real? And does the fact that different people get to vote in a general election, like independents like yourself, do you think that that matters and that Andrew Cuomo has a shot, having lost the race decisively to Mamdani?
He lost the race decisively, no question about it. But one of the things we have here now is the unification of the Democratic Party. You will not have it until Election Day with Eric Adams on the ballot and Mamdani on the Democratic line. It's not going to happen. The party will be split and fractured nationally. Everyone will have to answer for Mamdani. It's amazing what's going to happen nationally. This New York City election is an example of how important New York City is to the country and what these arguments are. This is one of the most progressive candidates. You have the Boston mayor is right now the one. You have one of them that could be horrendous for the future of the city, and the city has to unify to determine going forward. And Orange Man Bad, I've sat on this couch, is not a good campaign. Mamdani Bad is not a good campaign either. We must have concrete facts that move the voters.
The truth is this. In the next several months, Assemblyman Mamdani will become more popular. He will have more press. He will be able to raise more money. He'll become a more national presence. And the Democrats are lining up behind him. Once Congressman Nadler, the chair of the Jewish caucus in Congress, supported Assemblyman Mamdani, future controller Mark Levine supported Assemblyman Mamdani, we're going to start seeing the Democratic Party unify. What Democrat in his right mind is going to want to go against Assemblyman Mamdani and face a primary from the left? No one will. You're going to have a unified Democratic Party in November. We're seeing it already.
So do you think that Andrew Cuomo has a chance?
I don't think he has a chance right now in the ballot with Eric Adams. I think one of them on the ballot changed it, or Sliwa. There has to be a situation. We talked about this with the progressives, unifying. The progressives unified in the primary. The non-progressives of this city, the people that care about everything. Rebney saved the city in the 70s, writing checks, the real estate guys, to pay our taxes early. We need to come together as a city for our future.
Let's talk about this poll for a second, because the poll took into effect if one or the two people got out of the race. If Eric Adams got out of the race, the poll said Andrew Cuomo would beat Mamdani 44-40. But it also said if Cuomo got out of the race, Mamdani would beat Eric Adams by about 15 points.
Yep, and the reason for that is that you have a unified Democratic Party. Eric Adams is going to launch a strong campaign, and we already saw his kickoff. But I don't think it's going to be enough. Let me explain, Marcia.
Does he have a path?
No, the path
Does Eric Adams have a
It'll
path?
be very difficult. Let me explain, Marcia. This is very quick. The last time we had an independent mayor run and win was Michael Bloomberg.
Right.
And Michael Bloomberg had $300 million and the support of a major party line. He, as an independent who had left the Republican Party, secured the Republican line. It was the only way as an independent he was able to win. And now you have an independent running without a major party line. It is almost impossible, and without hundreds of millions of dollars.
The Cuomo loss was a kiss of death, I believe, potentially for Curtis Sliwa. Depending upon how this ballot looks at the end, with who's on it, with Cuomo campaigning or not, you have the problem that Curtis Sliwa has a ceiling. The R next to any candidate in New York City has a ceiling.
Even if he gets Trump support?
We know what Trump's number is. We know what Zeldin's number is. We know what happens in New York City for Republicans citywide. Fact.
Yep.
Curtis has to get greater than that without Cuomo having a Democratic line. That's the problem. Mamdani will gain voters. He'll have momentum.
Yes.
It must be stopped. The facts must come out, whatever they are. The research has to be done. So much research on politicians come in so late lately in these campaigns. This was almost a special election. His rise was so severe at the end, and fantastic. Bravo to him. Great campaign. But the Oppo research wasn't out a year ago. Yeah. That's one of the challenges here.
You know, I don't think Oppo research matters anymore. I don't think union endorsements matter anymore. I don't think elected officials' endorsements matter anymore. The elections and campaigns have changed dramatically. Assemblyman Mamdani demonstrated that. You no longer need to have all that experience. You no longer need all the unions. If you are able to launch an effective marketing campaign, a social media marketing campaign, galvanize voters across the city. And you know what else Assemblyman Mamdani did? 25%, according to a journalist, Bridget Bergen, 25% of all the voters on primary day were new voters. And we know he brought them in.
Early voting was that. I've asked the question about primary day. I don't know it yet. But before the election, 25% of those voters were new voters. How many did it on primary day? How many can Mamdani's organization do in the next 3 months? That's going to only increase. I think that's one of his benefits.
Yeah.
He connected to voters. Any attack must connect to voters. All these attacks previously had no money behind him to speak of. He was bad.
Cuomo had tens of millions of dollars talking about experience, talking about the globalized intifada that he mentioned. Nothing mattered. Nothing matters. This is one for the history books.
Campaign 101. Define yourself before your opponent does. Bravo to Mamdani. Nobody went negative. That's one of the challenges with ranked choice voting.
This was the most negative thing I've ever seen,
What do you mean nobody went?
This is the most negative campaigning I've ever seen in my life.
When you go negative, you have to start earlier. You have to define your opponent. I used to term ugly. If everyone is so beautiful, when you call him ugly, no, she's already beautiful. He's already beautiful. You have to define early and define yourself. Every campaign, that's campaign 101.
Okay, we're going to have to leave it right there for now. But our conversations continue right after the show on our streaming channel, CBS News New York. We are back with J.C. Polanco and OBrien Murray. So here's the question. There have been a number of stories over the last several days about how the business community is up in arms about the possibility of having to deal with a socialist mayor, Democratic socialist mayor. So there's been talk that Eric Adams is trying to make an alliance with people like that. Is that going to work, and does that give him a path to keeping his job?
I think Eric Adams has to get the message out. The three things he is most proud of and are believable and acceptable to the public. With guardian angel Curtis Sliwa, he has a very tough time owning the lane for crime on his own to the voters. He has to own that, and he has to make the case of what he's done the past 2 years and get the voters to accept the first 2 years were immigration and what happened from Governor Abbott and what happened at the beginning with COVID.
Great question. Mayor Adams is going to need a lot of money. I mentioned a little earlier in the first segment that the last time we had an independent mayor was Mayor Bloomberg, and he was able to win re-election because he was able to secure a major party line and had $300 million. Now, this is very different. Mayor Adams doesn't have that kind of money, and he needs what you just said.
People might start supporting
you're right.
him.
That's my point. They may be supporting him with money that he desperately needs, considering the campaign finance board is going to be hard for them to support him, considering that they've already made the decision not to. He's going to need that money. The question is, even with all the money that you may give him, can Mayor Adams realistically win in November with a divided opposition? And that's something that he really has to have a serious conversation
Marcia, on Wednesday,
about.
Was there any number out about what the Adams campaign raised on Wednesday or Thursday or this week at all? I haven't heard it.
It's too early because they haven't had to report it.
The first day Michelle Cruz Cabrera announced for Congress, $100,000 on a tweet from her. That's what it did. The Adams campaign has to get out in front and show they have a campaign moving forward that's strong and credible and organized.
Yep.
The Cuomo campaign messed up.
What about the power of incumbency?
It's priceless.
Doesn't that give Eric Adams sort of a leg up in a sense? Because he could go into any community and announce Program X, Program Y, Program Z, and maybe that's just as good as money.
It is as good as money, but you got to remember what I said earlier. Mayor Bloomberg had it too. He had power of incumbency. That wasn't enough. He needed a major party line. He needed a unified opposition going forward to win a re-election in this city that is controlled by Democrats. And right now, Mayor Adams won't have that moving forward unless the opposition joins forces. And the polls that you mentioned earlier from the Honan shows that if Mayor Adams is able to coalesce the opposition totally, he has a good shot. But if he's bifurcated with former Governor Cuomo and Curtis Sliwa, it's going to be very difficult.
It gives him a leg up, but it's still a wobbly three-legged stool. You have to have a very strong three-legged stool, and he doesn't have it yet. He has to be out there. He has to raise enough money to get $0 from CFB. The same problem that Cuomo had early, Adams is now having. How do you get the maximum amount of money and not spend 20% on fundraising to do it?
So Mayor Adams also said this is going to be the most interesting and historic mayoral race that the city has ever had.
He's right.
His words, not mine.
I can see it.
So what does he mean by that, and how could it be more historic than having Bloomberg run for 3 terms or, the other races that we've seen?
Because you have a socialist candidate who's 33 years old, who doesn't have a record, running to be chief executive officer of New York City against a sitting mayor who is going to be dynamic. He calls himself Mayor Swagger. He's going to campaign harder than ever before. He's going to do everything possible to keep his seat. And the fact that you also have Curtis Sliwa and an Andrew Cuomo on the ballot, we've never seen anything like this before. And he believes he's going to be able to galvanize money and support from around the country to defeat the socialist candidate.
Connecting to voters, you're quoting Adams right now. If you ask them who was the rapper historically, they would say Adams. He connects to voters that way, which they don't expect. They have to connect to the voters and get it out there soon. They have to get organized and execute. No campaign has been doing this yet. You can talk about the power of the incumbency, but you have to have a three-legged stool as strong as can be.
So what about the fact that there are Jewish voters that are concerned about Mr. Mamdani's commitment to their cause? He refuses to say that Israel has the right to exist as a Jewish state, which gives some Jews some pause. And this past week, Mayor Adams went on a TV show where he said that he thought that Mr. Mamdani was anti-Semitic. What role will those charges have in this campaign Or is it just too ugly to even contemplate?
No, I think that's why Mayor Adams' party is the anti-Semitism party. I mean, he's focused on this issue.
But he can only run on one party, so he's not running on that line.
Right, but check this out. He is, in fact, we have to remember that outside of Israel, New York City is home to the largest group of Jewish.
I just ran the Senate race and got clobbered, but the Republican in Brooklyn. I have the polling numbers on Cuomo in the Orthodox community, Adams and Hochul and everybody. Cuomo will lose those votes. Another reason he shouldn't run.
Yep.
He's coming down. Adams will own that. And it'll motivate the voters to turn out, but the election will be taken up by a lot of that. He has to have what's good for all New Yorkers. Any mayor that can't say they will go to Israel someday as mayor should not be mayor of the largest city of Jews outside of Israel.
This may be the first time. I was talking to some Jewish voters. They said the globalized intifada that Assemblyman Mamdani talked about and defended was shocking to them. And he's viewed as being anti-Semitic by some and others. And it's going to have a big role in November. The question becomes, what is Assemblyman Mamdani going to do from now until November to ingratiate himself to the Jewish community, to demonstrate that he's not anti-Semitic? Does he have enough time? And does...
So you think he can do it?
I think that with the support, now let me explain, with the support of future controller Mark Levine, with the support of Congressman Nadler, with the support of other Jews that are coming out to support him, he may be able to ingratiate himself to some of those communities. But that's not to say that we're not going to be able to take some of those quotes that we have from Assemblyman Mamdani and not see Eric Adams use them in negative campaigning against him to draw that. But you need a coalition. So he's going to be the business community, the Jewish community, those disaffected Democrats, and Republicans and independents supporting Eric Adams. If you don't have that, Mayor Adams is going to have a very difficult time winning re-election.
It's going to take up a lot of noise. It's going to motivate voters. But it's just so, I guess, Irish Catholic, Catholic high school, Catholic college, Jewish ex-wife. I've got a yarmulke in my pocket. I wore the suit last week to temple. I just happened to have my pocket when I came over here today. I mean, it is so offensive, and I'm not even Jewish.
Yep.
But and I talk about it in more, visceral about it than the people I run into in Borough Park when I walk down those streets.
Yep.
It is.
So I want to just change the topic for just a second and talk about another of the candidates in the race, Adrienne Adams, and the chatter that Governor Hochul might be considering her as a running mate when she runs for re-election next year as her lieutenant governor.
It'd be a genius move for her. Speaker Adams is incredibly qualified to be lieutenant governor, and I think she did great in the debates. I've always wondered why in the world she wasn't the Democratic nominee to go up against former Governor Andrew Cuomo. I think she's dynamic, she's exciting, she's New York all the way, and she could bring a lot of votes in for Kathy Hochul.
The third time's the charm. But the thing, I'll own my mistake on this one. I thought Lander was going to fall to fourth and Adams come to third. But Lander, when he became BFF with Mamdani, it was a great move the way he did it. The ICE stuff, I don't think that did it. It was all about him with Mamdani and being there. But Adams shut down her campaign for all intents and purposes. She refused to go near Mamdani on the debate, and I've said that publicly, refused to go after him and say, even on Election Day, wasn't putting him as number two. He got her enough money to raise...
You think she did that because she was thinking about running statewide with Kathy Hochul?
She can't be attached to the progressive. Imagine... It was an AOC issue in the squad with Israel.
So you think that she did that because she was thinking a statewide race, she can't be labeled as a progressive?
Of course, she can't be near Mamdani. Mamdani is radioactive nationally.
He's radioactive nationally. He's going to be the piñata for Republicans all over the country.
But Donald Trump has already started with that.
It's not just Donald Trump. It's every purple district Republican. Mike Lawler, who's a great guy friend of mine, not so much for.
I get along great with Mike.
Yeah.
Mike and I get along. I work with Michael recently.
I'm one of these Harris Lawler guys, right? Very, very interesting. But
how do you get Harris Lawler?
I know. It's essential.
We need another show on that.
I know, essential. But you know what's interesting? He's at 9:01. Congressman Lawler was already attacking Assemblyman Mamdani.
You missed it. No, that was written the day before.
Well, it doesn't matter. What I'm saying is every purple district around the country where Republicans thought they were going to have a tough time facing a Democrat because the Speaker Jeffries was coming is going to have a field day with a Mayor Mamdani in the midterm elections because he's going to be the boogeyman piñata for every single purple district across the country.
In 2016, Jack, who do you support for president? The Republican nominee. As soon as it was Trump, Everything then from that moment on, press conference, Curtis Sliwa and Jack Martin's, anything about Trump, we had to say, be ready for those questions. Everything he did that day, Mamdani will now become the national question for every Democrat every day. Any action he takes, any social media he does, every reporter in this country will be following Mamdani and asking the Democrats about that because the Republicans will be attacking him for it.
I have to ask one question. Is that good or is that bad?
For who?
for Mr. Mamdani?
I think for him it's great. It's going to increase. It's going to increase his national awareness. AOC does fantastic in her congressional district.
Do you think it's good or bad?
It's great for Assemblyman Mamdani and for AOC and for the socialists, but terrible for the country.
Is it good? What about New York?
Terrible for the country because you're going to get some crazy right-wingers elected in places that are going to make it much more difficult for us to have a moderate government.
Okay,
Can we extend the show a couple hours? But in New York State, they say when New York City has a problem, Albany must fix it and pay for it. Wait till you see what Mamdani costs New Yorkers and the country when they can't afford it in Albany and they go to Washington.
And that's a whole show for another day.
I asked for a couple hours.
Thank you guys for joining. You'll be back. Thank you guys for joining me.
Thank you.
Thank you at home for joining us as well.